I don't know how any of this works. I'm hoping, Nicholas, that we are live. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. What I can say, Nicholas, is to start the show off with some kind words. Couple for you, in fact. One,
Wow.
in our private group chat, someone posted, Goo posted a picture of you, and I thought you looked strikingly like Rob Lowe.
Oh, wow.
I will never ever compliment you in such a fashion ever again, but it did come to mind,
Fair.
and I thought I would pass that on.
Thank you.
Second of all, thank you, sir, for your kind donation to my daughter's pie fundraiser.
Happy to do it.
There's another fundraiser where she's running, so you can fund that one too.
I
If you'd
would like
like.
to make a slight request here. Are
I'm
you
just
also running? No. I don't care. Are you also running in it? Because I might increase how much I donate if you run in it as
no,
well.
I'm not. I am not running.
Oh, you're letting your kid down. I don't know what to tell
So
you.
so so they did this last year, and I remember Violet's first grade teacher goes, "Oh my God, she doesn't stop. She just like boom, 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 just running around. It's pretty much just running laps, in the playground there. Um, but she's a goddamn animal. She right now is the second highest earner in the school for the pie thing.
Ooh.
Big thing. She was first. But some kid came out of fucking nowhere. It wasn't even anywhere sniffing the leaderboard. And all of a sudden, he's slinging 27 pies.
I call
Yeah,
shenanigans on this
you're
one.
damn right. You're damn right. I'm calling shenanigans.
Yeah, I think someone's got an uncle in high places, and I call
Yeah,
bullshit here.
yeah, right. So I mean, she got up to 23, but hot damn, out of nowhere, like 0 to 60. Anyways, folks. Anyways, I will stop boring you with regaling you of my daughter's fundraising prowess, and we're gonna get to the good stuff, Nicholas.
Oh yeah.
And I'm on fire, figuratively and literally, because the Scotch bonnets I ate with my tacos today are I got a little heavy-handed, let's say. So, with that said, Nicholas, I adore you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, Geeks Worldwide Radio and the Dork Shared Universe proudly present to you the greatest, and I mean the greatest, podcasting team in the world. He's the comic book writer, Dick Friar. I am your supreme dictator, retired for life, Lord Dr. Gilmore. And together we are the TLDR Comic Book Club, baby.
I think you should only call me Dick Friar when you introduce me from now on. That was.
Did I call you Dick Friar?
You didn't do that on purpose. You did.
That's a comic book writer, Nick Friar.
You said comic book writer Dick Friar. I think you did that on purpose.
No,
I thought it was great. Oh God, you pull me with the okey doke on I adore you, then you call me Dick Friar. I thought this was just all well done. Joe's just a great writer and doesn't realize it deep down.
Yeah.
But what you. My goodness. So before we get rolling, because we got a lot to get to, and New York Comic Con, some big news came out. There's other news that came out before and after as well. But I want to remind everybody, make sure you subscribe to one of our audio channels. It's the only place you're going to find our Friar Side chats, where we're going to be talking about some work from some people we've had on for Friar Side chats before. And those are conversations with creators across the industry. We have a bunch of those, but the only place you can find them are on our audio channels. We do not do those in video form. We've done that once before, just by tweeting out and sharing, portions of videos previously. Go to Apple, Spotify, Geeks Worldwide Radio, Amazon, Pocket Cast, you name it. You can find us there in the audio version. And look, you can watch us every Tuesday night, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram Live. By all means, go for it. But if you want to hear those conversations, which some pretty damn good stuff over there, if I do say so myself, make sure you subscribe to one of the audio channels. Otherwise, and make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review while you're subscribing. Otherwise, you're going to learn the real meaning of Backcracker, and he'll probably start calling you a dick at some point too. All right, Joe. So we got I'm not kidding. We don't always get into news within the industry because there's so much to cover. We just want to talk about the books a lot of the times, but there's a lot of shit to get to to address before we get into those books. I think we should start off with New York Comic Con, because I think we need to take a tiny little victory lap. You in particular, because, friend of the show, Cullen Bunn, has said before how, if you watch this on our stream, Joe has this little thing written under his name that says, "I didn't spoil shit." And this Vertigo news, everybody, Joe and I may or may not have known that for a long while, and we may have, I don't know if we ever hinted at it, but we never fucking said it. That's for damn sure.
Nope. Like fucking Fort Knox, baby. I didn't spoil shit. You hear that, Chip? I didn't spoil shit. Right? I'm still sitting on a nugget that you gave us a long time ago, and then you come out and you tell us you're not. We saw you at C2E2. You said you made the decision then not to continue with Batman come this last final arc coming up, and here I am going, Chip, my Chip. Oh, I thought we were boys. But yeah, Batman is Zdarsky's run on Batman is coming to an end. It's been a tremendous run, and I he said in a letter, on his in his newsletter there that he'd been thinking about doing it for a while, and he's really busy, and writing Batman is a very intensive thing, and he's got lots of other things. So I get it, I understand. We're seeing that a lot lately. It started with him and Daredevil, and then with Percy and Wolverine, and now Zdarsky again with Batman. But we're seeing the creators that follow them, right? Tom Taylor at Nightwing. We're seeing the creators that follow them rise to the challenge, and we're going to discuss some of that here today. Like Saladin Ahmad, right, took over for both Wolverine and Daredevil. And he's crushing Daredevil, and so far his run into Wolverine has been excellent. And we got a writer today that we're going to discuss that may be up for an award coming up at the end of the year. That's taken over for Tom Taylor on Nightwing, and so DC and Marvel right now have done something very wise, and they've taken a lot of the really great indie talent and have snapped them up. And so that's great, because now we're getting, I think we've been seeing this a little bit more so from DC, but also from Marvel, some edgier content. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of letting these indie guys get in there and cook and not micromanage so much.
That's the biggest thing too, is not just getting them, is letting them do their work as well, and finding ways to make it all work, and like to let the story live, and then find a way to make it work, like with the wrapping paper that you kind of put it in, because instead of like impacting the product in a negative way just because of obvious, like corporate type machinery and whatnot. Especially like DC and Marvel, they're doing a great job, like adjusting along the way. We have the absolute stories all in, and when we have Ultimate, which, speaking of, so again, I don't want to like gloss over this. I'm extremely excited that we're going to be getting more Vertigo. We know of at least one individual who's going to be involved in this. We can't say who, but we're like, this is awesome. I really hope that we see, like, because Constantine, that's he's a Vertigo character. I hope that with Cy and Aaron Campbell, that as much as they're about to wrap up Dead in America, I would love to see them tell more Constantine stories. So I'm really hopeful for that. But then on the Marvel side, we also got to look at Ultimate Wolverine. So obviously they're doing a lot of the Ultimate Universe stuff over there at Marvel. Spider-Man has been the biggest one. There have been other interesting titles as well, but
might be up for a floppy.
Right. But Ultimate Wolverine, I mean, I saw that right away and was like, this looks so fucking cool. And was it Chris Condon who's going to be writing it? Yeah. I mean, that Texas blood, man, that's friggin' huge.
Yep. So great stuff. And then, so I mentioned Zdarsky's run on Batman is ending, and also we talked about last week Local Man 25, and I thought at the time it was just going to be like sort of an out of place, future, looking at the future as sort of a one shot. No, that was the last chapter, the last issue of Local Man, and Tony Fleece. He wrote a nice long piece about it, just saying, unfortunately in this business, hard decisions have to be made, and where it was a very time consuming book for him and Tim Seeley. At the end of the day, the margins matter, and you have to weigh how the book is selling, how much time of yours is it consuming, on top of all the other projects that Tony has and Tim have going on. So we'll call it on hiatus
Yeah, that's the way
because
to put it.
hopefully it will return. Because there's so much promise with this story, that, and these characters that they've built, and so there could be. They left the door open for for it to return, but doesn't look like it'll be anytime soon. It's a real bummer because I was really loving and really digging this comic.
Yeah, this is one I could easily see finding a way to get have another resurgence. I think it was through issue 4 was where it was selling really well, and then that's where the decline started to happen, and where they kind of started to just tread water, which is so unfortunate to hear. But this is unfortunately the nature of the business, and that's the thing that you run into with indie comics, especially when you're talking about Image, where it's the creators who are fronting the money by and large on all of that. So I really hope that everybody goes and checks it out, and maybe we get a revival of Local Man. I'm sure that
Hey, if the
Tony,
trades sell well, right,
yes,
that's a good indicator.
yep. And if Tony and Tony and Tim even like, I think, I'm sorry, Tony in his letter to the readers did say, like, we'll find a story where we just have to come back and tell another Local Man story. I hope by the time that happens, that the sales of the trades have just gone through the friggin' roof. And I'm sure that if those sales do well, the guys will have a fun way to, like, do another amazing homage to 90s comics and where things died and then they
Mm.
came back. They did an outstanding job. And if you liked 90s comics, if you're craving that kind of feeling again, you really should go out and check Local Man. And also you should listen to our episode on it. Joe talked about it on the show previously. I had serious FOMO about this series, and the fact that it's done for now sucks. But
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do about it. Obviously, Tim and Tony are doing well otherwise, and I know that book has led to other opportunities for those guys as well, which is great to see. That's it for all the news that we needed to deal with. Quickly going through, catching up for me at least. Flash Gordon issue 3. I just want to say, absolutely my favorite issue of the
I got to
series
read
so
that
far.
one still. Yeah.
Dude, it's a focus on Ming. And again, like you, I'm not, you are not really familiar with Flash Gordon. I really only know him through Ted and through using his fucking walkout song in my worst year of my baseball career. At least half of the year was terrible. So I fucking hate Flash Gordon in a way, but I also love him in a way. So I don't know much, but I love what they did with Ming. Like, just like getting to know that character more in this issue. I had a blast. But you had a lot more that you caught up on.
I did a ton of reading. The fact there might only be one book that I just didn't get to this week. But I was at Newbury Comics and I picked up The Moon is Following Us, because it's like, how did and I knew it was a second printing. So how did I miss this? Did I say, and I'm thinking to myself, did I not get a review copy for this? Because this is an Image book and it's a Daniel Warren Johnson book. So I grabbed it and then I got home and I checked. Yes, I did have the review copy for it. Read it. Absolutely love it. This is a story, and the second issue came out this week. And this is a story about, it's essentially a story about a kid who sort of falls asleep and is unable to wake up, still breathing, but they're just living in this dream world, and the parents and the doctors and nobody knows what's going on. But it starts off where you're sort of in this sci-fi sort of hellscape where you've got a mother and a father, and they're fighting these demons, and you just thrust into it in the first issue and you don't know what's going on. You sort of meet all these characters at the end of the issue. They get pulled out and they take their headsets off and they're back in reality, but then you see what they're fighting for. Their daughter is still, in the Matrix, so to speak. So that first issue, just absolute killer of an issue, like dibs. And you reminded me that I called dibs, because I must have called dibs on it from the solicit.
Yes.
And I've since written it down so I won't forget. And then,
Good man.
we'll I didn't plan on talking it in detail when highlighting other books, but the second issue really gives you that origin as to when it happened and how it happened and how you sort of meet some of these characters that you just sort of quickly thrust into in the first issue. It's very emotional. Daniel Warren Johnson, we've seen it with Transformers. We saw it with the Power Bomb, the wrestling book he had, and some of his other books. He's got just a wonderful, he's starting to become like one of these Lemire Lewis kind of guys for me, that just, he invokes powerful emotion from you while reading it. Right. It is very family oriented, and and it's so well done. The pacing of his stories are tremendous. So like the moon is following us. If you're running to your comic book shop this week and you see issue 2, take a look and see if there's an extra issue of issue 1 kicking around. Grab it, read it, throw it on your pull list. Excellent, like absolutely excellent. And then there's been a couple books that I've picked up over the past few weeks, just from random publishers I've never heard of, but the covers look cool and I flipped through, and the interior art looked great. One is Liquid Kill from Massive Publishing. This is a really cool sort of sci-fi book. And then there's one called Hell's Half Acre, which is sort of more of a Western book, Western horror book. This is from Magma Comics. And then there's Batman Full Moon issue 1, written by Rodney Barnes. This is a Black Label book. I know some people bitch and moan, oh, it's another Batman Black Label book, right? No, the best that you want to read Batman Black Label books, because Batman's allowed to live out of the sandbox that DC has him so confined into in the mainline. The writers, especially someone like Rodney Barnes, can take the story to new different places. And right. I immediately texted you and texted Rich Keefe and said, go read this, because it's got werewolves, it's got Man-Bat in it. Rodney's a great storyteller. It's dark, it's gothic, it's fantastic. And then lastly, Void Rivals volumes 1 and 2. I've been meaning to catch up on this because I've been so into the Energon universe that I was able to find volume 1 and volume 2 on Hoopla. I flew through them, and issue 13 is out this week, and it doesn't disappoint. We'll get into all that and more. So, lots to that was a shit ton of just catching up. Not to mention, like, this was one hell of a week for books.
It was, but guess what? We're still not there yet, because we have an early look to get to for you guys. Another Mad Cave early look, and this is Exiles issue 1. This is written by Cullen Bunn with art by Joe Picardo. And I had said to Joe, because I feel like I had gotten a stretch of like Cullen Bunn dibs, and then a stretch of like Mad Caves like dibs on Joe. So I was like, take this one, take a look at it. Like, it's Cullen and it's Mad Cave. Just you know, if you want it, you have dibs on it. And then Joe looked at it and so generously said, no, you need to read this. No, I'm not taking dibs on this. Read the first issue. And I did. And I totally get why Joe gave it back to me. This is basically a story where if John Constantine had a bunch of kids with all the women that he slept with over the years, and then he left them to pay his debts off, essentially. Yeah. And I like, that's the first couple pages. I'm like, oh, this, yep, totally get it. So thank you for being so generous.
But the best part about it is that, like, you're sort of at this funeral with all these random people there, right? And they don't realize that dickhead's their father.
Yeah.
Right. And then the chaos that ensues right from there. And it's just like, oh, I died, my student debt wipes away. Just because you're dead doesn't mean your debt is wiped away. So the premise of this book is fantastic. I know how much you love Constantine and those types of gothic religious kind of background settings, right, to comics. And I couldn't do this to Nicholas. He just bought a brambleberry pie off my daughter. I couldn't do that.
Well, yeah, I appreciate
Side
that.
note, you want to hear some bullshit?
What?
I was out in Western Mass camping, right?
Okay.
And we're at a Big Y out there to get some, some food for the campsite. And the company that makes the pies for the fundraiser sells them at Big Y for literally half the price.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I go, I can just come here to buy the pies. Oh, but it's for a good cause. It pays for things like school.
That's what it is. The half. So now you know half of it or whatever is going to the school, and the other is going to the company. Just the long and short of it, to finish, put a punctuation mark on Exiles. Horror fans, you absolutely have to check out this first issue. It's so fucking good. All right. Now we have all.
And Picardo's art. If we didn't mention it, Picardo's art, excellent.
Yeah, dude. It's It was like, if I was to liken it to anybody, I would probably say Jason Sean Alexander and Hermana Ermasuk in Philadelphia. That felt very similar to that. All right, let's get into the books that are actually coming out this week. Took us a little bit to get there, but here we are, Joe. Start us off with Marvel, please.
Marvel. So out of all the books, well, typical. We only have a couple books we discussed this week for Marvel, but a lot they released regardless. X-Men issue 6. Past few issues haven't been drawn by Ryan Stegman. He's been sort of issue here, a couple issues off, so he's probably had some conflicts. But another solid issue there. The Avengers issue 19, The Incredible Hulk issue 18, Spider-Boy issue 12, The Scarlet Witch issue 5, Dazzler issue 2, Spider Society issue 3. You better give me some Spider-Man, Marvel. Venom War Carnage issue 3, Werewolf by Night issue 3, Venom War Lethal Protectors issue 2, Spirits of Vengeance issue 2, Conquest 2099 issue 2, Avengers United Infinity Comic issue 53, Iron Man issue 1. I'm real pissed. No Spider-Man. I really love saying Spider-Man. If you didn't guess. But then we have a number one you do want to talk about, Nicholas.
Yes, X Factor issue 3. Of course,
X Factor. What?
Of course, Mark Russell and Bob Quinn. Joe, do you mind if I power dog while we're doing this review?
Power dog, power bottom, whatever you need to do.
I can't stress it enough, like how good Mark Russell is at writing social commentary, because it's not just like he makes good points and it doesn't feel heavy-handed. It feels like the commentary is always present with whatever he's writing, but at the same time, he also manages to make like moments feel like moments of really strong, powerful commentary feel very subtle. I'm just very impressed by that. And obviously Bob Quinn, we've read about his art a ton, but it's just perfect for this like somewhat like there's a commentary, there's like a serious element, but also kind of goofy kind of story. And then also Granny Smite, a character who is fairly new, who is this is a big issue for her. She is quite the character. But X Factor issue 3, we've been talking about X Factor for a little bit now. The first 2 issues were awesome, and the third one's right on the same level. So definitely something that people should be reading. And this is something that like there's X-Men characters that mutants that you're familiar with, but really like it's Havoc and then a bunch of like C-list type mutants. Like this is quality writing, and now like the plot and everything else around it is why you're going to be reading this and sticking around for that matter too.
Yeah, I got to catch up on that. But that first issue was fantastic, and there's some of that with the book that I'm going to be talking about too, with the social commentary. When done right, man, it's awesome. But a lot of times it gets real heavy-handed.
Yes,
and that's when I'm out.
Yeah,
right. I don't want to be lectured to while reading comics.
It's very easy for that to happen. For it to go too far. It's a tough line to toe. But Mark Russell is one of the best at doing it. Moving over to DC, we got a ton over there and a ton to break down.
Week.
Yeah. First off, John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America, issue 10. Fucking awesome. I cannot wait for the 11th and final issue of this story. Just been outstanding. But we got so many books to break down. I'm actually not going into detail on that one this week. We got Action Comics 1072, Superman, issue 19, Green Arrow, issue 17, The Flash, issue 14, Harley Quinn, issue 44, Zatanna, Bring Down the House, issue 5, Batman, The Brave and the Bold, issue 18, Power Girl, issue 14, from the DC Vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives 4. I honestly had a slight pause, and when I was reading these off, just to leave room in case you were going to do that. Batman 89, Echoes, issue 5, Batman, Wayne Family Adventures, issue 135, Green Lantern Dark, issue 1. If there had not been so many awesome books in this week, this would have been, I would have tried to take a microscope to this one. I will still look at it because I want to take a look at Green Lantern, because obviously we've seen the recent investment on DC's part. I'm very excited for both Green Lanterns that they've cast. Of course, Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan. And also we have Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. DC Horror Presents issue 1. And then, Joe, we have one book that you want to break down individually. Actually, no, 2, because I'm still behind on Nightwing. Why don't you lead us off there? Because you were hinting at that earlier.
Okay, so we've we've known that Tom Taylor's run was ending for a while now. It was ending with issue 118, which I feel was like last week is when it ended. So like to
Yeah,
have this come out like so fast,
smart.
I thought was very smart.
Yeah.
And so this is now being written by Dan Waters with art by Dexter Soy. And Dan Waters has quickly become one of my favorite writers. He's written a lot of very impactful books for me, over this past year. And so when I saw that he was taking over Nightwing, I knew Nightwing was going to be in good hands. And it's funny because recently Rom V's run on Detective Comics just came to an end, which is now being written by Tom Taylor, which I'll get to in a minute. What I loved about Rom V's run on Detective Comics was his operatic tone that he took to the storytelling. That's what he did. He told the story of Batman through acts as if you were at an opera, and it had a gothic feel to it. It's like if you were attending the opera at the turn of the century, or turn of the 19th and the 20th century. It's just that there's, to me, like the opera has a macabre feel to it, right? You get dressed up and all this, and it's like the stories can be very intense. And I thought that was such a brilliant way to tell the story of Batman. And what we get here with Nightwing is sort of Dan Waters' take on writing Nightwing as a bit of an opera, right?
Oh.
And so what Dan does well is that I think, well, what Tom Taylor did for Nightwing and Dick Grayson, it was he gave him a lot of heart in it. He gave him a lot of just natural human every qualities one could relate to. And with Dan, he's kept that, but you could tell early on this iteration of Dick Grayson is gonna be a little bit more of an ass kicker. At least that's the impression that I got. Right. So not aggressive, and he's not gonna be like Damien or Bruce himself, but like just a little bit more of a presence. And Dexter Soy's art in this is wonderful. So a lot of times you get narration, right? In this you get narration, but you see the narrator too. You see the puppet master pulling the strings here, and how they are trying to reshape Bloodhaven after everything that Dick has done for it, with Alfred's, with all the money that Alfred left him. So this was a brilliant way to pass the torch, allow Dan to put his own stamp on it and show you the direction he's going to take it, while not just completely resetting, rebooting, and disregarding all the awesomeness and all the hard work that Tom Taylor had put into rehabilitating that character over his run. So again, you don't necessarily need to have read all of Tom Taylor's run to be able to read this. So if you're just starting on now, this is a great starting on point. I mean, obviously you want to read Tom Taylor's run because it was excellent, but it was just like, I think that torch was just passed perfectly.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, that's so important in this issue, because there are going to be people who are just going to be like, I don't want to go back and do all of that and read all of Tom Taylor stuff. But then if they read this and they like it, then they might be like, oh, okay, maybe I'll go and do that. Actually, maybe it would be a good idea, because this is really good. And if it's anything like this, then yeah, okay, I should do that.
Yeah. It's excellent. And like I said, to me right now, like Dan Waters, like for like 2024 is a top 5 writer for me. He's been that damn good.
Okay, that's and I still have to read the Six Fingers, and of course the One Hand as well. But
and you should also read The Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives. He did that for the Universal Monster series.
You're not doing that one on the show, right? You're just doing Dracula as it stands, right? That's the plan.
I'm doing Dracula for the last of the month, but I think Frankenstein is a possibility, but definitely Dracula.
When I heard the Frankenstein one, like the plan for it, and I like what Michael Or am I blanking on his name right now? Michael Walsh had planned
Yeah.
for it. It was like, this sounds just like an amazing concept.
Mhm.
So it makes sense that would make the cut. Awesome. Now moving on from DC, we got Absolute Wonder Woman. Excuse me, Absolute Wonder Woman issue 1 by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman. Very deep, dark twist on the character. Yet there's still light in her. It's just that it happens to be surrounded by a lot of desire for vengeance as well. I think Absolute Wonder Woman was a total force. This is an awesome first issue, and also I love Pegasus as a companion. Like, what a cool look! Like, to see her like this badass woman riding around on this like death like winged horse. It's just it was a great first issue. Had a lot of fun. Got deep, gave you a lot of action. Definitely like what you're looking for in these new Absolute all-in titles.
I love the twist in the origin.
Mm-hmm.
I love the look of the character. This might be Hayden Sherman's best work, like to date. There was a fierceness to it, right? There was this foreboding that you get, and is Hayden doing the colors as well, or who's the colorist on this?
I don't
Real
think it's
quick,
Hayden. I'll give you a check.
because the colors are absolutely brilliant too, right? We're so used to seeing Diana and Wonder Woman, right, in these just bright, shimmering, red, white, blue, gold, right, just brilliant colors. And in this, we see that it's dark, it's blacks, it's reds, it's fierce,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just such a wonderful new take. That's why I'm enjoying the Absolute series so far. Jordi Belair, yeah,
Yeah.
crushing it on the colors.
Yeah, no surprise. Jordy Blair is one of the best in the business without question. Awesome. So then that leaves one last big DC for week for us. It leaves us with Detective Comics 1090. Which you want to dig into?
Ooh, man. So again, we get now Tom Taylor taking over for Rom V. And like I said, Rom V's run was excellent. I'd never read Detective Comics really prior to that. I think what got me into it was Mariko Tamaki and Dan Mora during the big event that they did a few years back. And so like that operatic vibe to it was excellent. And then the way he ended it, like it was such sort of like this cliffhanger, like there's more to the Wayne family than we've been led to believe. And that's sort of where Tom Taylor kicks things off. Again, it's this passing of the torch. It's taking the baton and running with it. And it's staying true to what Rom had created, but Taylor putting his own spin on it. And we get a lot of present day, we get a lot of flashback, and we get a lot of Thomas Wayne in this issue and decisions that he makes and doesn't make, and the impact that it has, not just on Bruce but sort of Gotham as a whole. And it was so well done. I always talk about what makes a good comic book is that when you read it, the story the story pulls you in, and by the end of it, it's got its hooks so far deep in you that you want that second issue immediately, right? And I was pulled in right from the beginning because the intrigue, the dilemma, the choices that Thomas Wayne has to make, whether they're popular or not, he has to make them, and then how they come back. This was a wonderful Batman story without a whole lot of Batman.
Ooh.
And
Okay.
I love where Taylor's going with it. So
Not always an easy thing to do, but when
mhm.
done well, very impressive. All right, I'm going to take us through these next few because we don't have any books that we want to break down until we get to Image at the end here. So from Boom, we got Hello Darkness issue 4, Jim
My old
Henson's
friend.
Labyrinth issue 2, Animal Pound Pen and Ink issue 1. From Dark Horse, we got The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos issue 13, Paranoid
And a
Gardens issue.
whole lot of cube dice.
Paranoid Gardens issue 4, The Goon, Them That Don't Stay Dead issue 3, which is Joe's favorite title of the week. Kanto, A Place Like Home issue 5. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Land of the Giants issue 3. I cannot believe I got that all right. The Masked Mocker, issue
Probably
2.
Maker, if I had to guess.
Maker? Why would they do that to us? It's spelled Macher, everybody. So I don't. Okay. Anyways, Space Usagi, White Star Rising, Headless Horseman, Halloween Annual. Then from IDW, we got the 3rd issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We would have talked about this, but we didn't get a chance to look at it in time. But very excited for more TMNT from Jason Aaron. First 2 issues were outstanding. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Saturday Morning Adventures, issue 18. Hunger in the Dusk, book 2, issue 3. Star Trek Defiant, issue 20. Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater, issue 1. From Mad Cave, you heard Joe recently talk about Hour of the Wolf, issue 1. That is out this week. The Body Trade, issue 2.
Excellent.
Gotcha Man, Galactor, issue 3. And Gotcha Man, issue 4. From Vault, a book that I have dibs on, Something Crawled Out, issue 3. From Titan, we got Blade Runner, Tokyo Nexus, issue 4. From Oni, we got Sesame Street, issue 3. And Sectars, issue 1. And then from Dynamite, we got Lilo and Stitch, issue 6. Thundercats, Chitara, issue 4. Army of Darkness Forever, issue 13. Hercules, issue 6. The Powerpuff Girls Halloween special. And then Thundercats, issue 9. And that brings us to Image and Skybound. All you, dude.
What a week from Image. Holy cow. I mean, I think between the two of us, we must have read almost all of these books this week.
Pretty much.
So I mentioned Void Rivals, volumes 1 and 2. That's issues 1 through 12. Well, issue 13 is out, and this was one hell of an issue. So if you're in the Energon universe and you haven't been reading Void Rivals, which is the one that kicked it off, written by Kirkman, I would highly suggest picking up the trades and or checking out Hoopla. We have Rook Exodus, issue 6.
I will be talking about this ASAP on the show. No, obviously not for spooky season, but yeah, you should not have to wait any longer. The first arc's done. So we're going to get going.
King Spawn, issue 39. Universal Monsters Frankenstein, issue 3. Excellent. The Moon is Following Us, issue 2. Just a little, nudge, nudge. This may or may not be the hidden gem of the week.
Ooh.
Because it might be one of the... I want to say it might be... Here's the thing about this week. I could easily, in any given week, say this is my favorite book of the week. But I read Absolute Wonder Woman, which also falls into that category. And then there's 2 other books that could fall into that category as well. Convert, issue 3. The Horizon Experiment, The Sacred Damned, issue 1. Hack Slash Body Bags, issue 1. The Feeding, which I initially had marked to talk about. It's only a one-shot, but it is a hell of a one-shot. This is a absolute tremendous spooky season horror book revolving around a real scumbag and a real creepy piece of art. Creep Show issue 2, Kaya issue 22, Standstill issue 3, which is one of the books I didn't get to this week, unfortunately. Voices in My Head issue 1, and then Grommets issue 5, and then we've got a bunch of books here, Nicholas, that we'd like to discuss. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm going to kick us off with the Power Fantasy issue 3. We've had some jaw-dropping events from this series already. I still wasn't ready for this issue. I'm still like, when I went to just think about the books I want to talk about, I started thinking about this book again because I'd read this before the weekend. I started thinking about the ending again, and I was just like, fuck. Like that ending hit me probably on in 3 different ways when I was looking at it, because I saw it, I was like, holy shit, and then I looked at it more and I was like, wait a second, and then I looked at some other stuff to kind of help myself figure it out, and I was like, what the fuck? So just and again, when we talk about subtlety, there's something that I feel like I'm at least appreciating a little bit more, so where we just see something big happen and the story's moving along at this pace, and then it's oh yeah, and then this happened. And like Kieran does that. We know that's how Kieran friggin' talks to us. Like it's just like, oh yeah, there's this, that, and then there's this. And it's like that's like the big fucking deal half the time. So I absolutely love this issue. Huge issue for Valentina. Very excited and invested in this character. I wouldn't say that I necessarily was prior to this issue. But I will say that I am all in on this moral versus ethical like conversation that is at the center of the power fantasy. I cannot get enough of it. So this is another great issue. This is Casper Wingard, Kieran Gillen, must read stuff.
Yeah, I just caught up on issue 2. This is one of those books for me that I need to read in silence. I've got to be, I got to sit down, put on my robe, pour a snifter of brandy and just dive into and sort of be left alone. Because
I think that makes a lot of sense.
There's a lot going on in this book, and not just, it's not necessarily a lot going on because it's a mile a minute action. There's a lot going on because of the existential crisis of everything, and sort of that, as you just mentioned, that sort of right versus right, that discussion. It's a think piece as much as anything.
Yeah, it really is, and it's in. We both like having books that move at like a breakneck pace all the time. And part of the reason for that also plays into just like time. Like you want things to move at a good pace. But we always talk about moving at a brisk pace, but really what matters most is that the story moves at the appropriate pace. And that's not always fast for every story. In the power fantasy.
Power fanny. Oh, hell.
Right. Wow. What the fuck is wrong with me? Wow.
You looks like you had a weekend up there in the Kangamangas. With the man in Mangus, am I right?
Oh my goodness. Moving on. The last thing I want to say about the power fantasy is, and obviously you haven't checked out the third issue, but there's this is not the thing you'll talk about when you read it and you text me about it. But at the end of this issue, like after the ending, there's like a timeline of events that gets laid out by Kieran and Casper. I'm not going to go into the specifics, obviously. I'm just saying in general, they do that. And they talk about a lot in that page. It's kind of like an infographic kind of thing. It's a very, very interesting tactic. And I will leave it at that. When you see that, though, I'm curious your thoughts. But yeah, so the Power Fantasy issue 3. What did you think about the Tin Can Society?
I want to save that.
Ooh.
So let's talk about Null Hunter first.
Yeah, okay, for sure. So Michael Walsh, who we mentioned before, and Gustavo Vargas. The start of this thing, man, was fucking unhinged. I couldn't believe it. It was like so we talk about the power fantasy where it moves at like a steadier pace. There's a lot going on. You need to take everything in. This is like right away, just like turn the volume up and rip the fucking knob off.
Fuck.
Yep.
Was what I said to myself when I go.
Yeah.
Oh, it was intense.
Yeah.
And then there's a moment you go, oh, that poor bastard.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you're just like, oh, fuck again.
Yep.
It was a roller coaster.
It sets an amazing tone of unease right from the jump. And this is labeled as like a kinetic cyberpunk retelling of the labors of Hercules. And you see that in like from like the kinetic element of it specifically, like very present. This moves really fucking fast. There's like they set the stakes and the tone and everything early on. And there is a lot going on, but also the action really just consumes you. There's about like 4 or 5 pages in a row of action, something to that degree. And it's just like there's so much going on in that. And then just the way a great ending as well too. It's just like a couple subtle things that happen. It's like, what the fuck, man?
The writing is vicious, but the art is vicious.
Yeah.
Like, oh man. And it's like literally 0 to 1,000 right off the first few panels. You go, okay, strap in and strap on because we're in for a wild ride, baby.
Damn straight. So Null Hunter issue 1. That is something that you guys are going to want to give a look this week. That you won't miss the cover too, because like that the colors on that thing, they pop like freaking crazy.
And it's a great sci-fi book for all you sci-fi nerds out there. And
Bingo.
I say that as a German endearment.
Definitely. Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. So then that leaves us with only one more book left to discuss, Joe, before we get into the 2 trades that we want to break down.
So did you read this book? Because I called dibs. So
no. I thought for some reason that we talked about dibs previously, like that you had it, or I don't remember what happened, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So there was a whole, as you can tell, there's a whole bunch of number ones from Image this week. One of which neither of us got to. Two of
Yeah,
which we didn't get to.
two we didn't get to. Yep.
So like I looked at the art, null, like when I'm sort of undecided, I'm taking a look, seeing who the creators are. Then I'm looking at the art, and then like if I'm crunch for time, that's how I'm gonna just fair or not. That's how I'm gonna make my decision. So I looked at the art for Null. I saw the first panels of Null Hunter. Said, "Oh, I had to keep going." When I'm looking at Tin Can Society, the name doesn't necessarily, the title doesn't necessarily grab me. But I open up and I go, "Okay, the art. I'm enjoying this." This is written by Peter Warren with art by Francesco Mobley, and this is a tremendous book. As soon as I got a couple pages in, I texted Nick. I said, I'm taking dibs on this, because this is a book that's right up my alley. This is a rare book from Image that gives you a warning, gives you several warnings right before you even start. It says there's going to be bodily violence, violence towards people with special needs, because the main character has spina bifida. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. Like it's pretty much like if you're triggered by these things, you might not want to read this book. So go, okay. And again, just like with Null Hunter, the first few panels, you are looking at a severely beaten, murdered human being. And the art, Mobley's art is outstanding, and he doesn't hold back. And what this story revolves around is the main character, Johnny Moore. He's a genius, but he's adopted. Right, he was born with spina bifida, so his parents left him, put him up for adoption. So he's the irony is that he's adopted by a family of Christian Scientists. If you know anything about Christian Scientists, they don't believe in going to the doctors. And he grows up to be one of the aforementioned, one of the greatest scientists of his generation, in terms of, helping the disabled, and from what I can tell, robotics. And so he grows up to be a very famous person, championing, people with disabilities. And him and a friend of his have developed this sort of mecha warrior type suit that allows him to walk without crutches. But you find out right from the first few panels, he's dead, right? And so a lot of the issue is going back, and flashing back to when he was a kid and his friends, which call themselves the Tin Can Society, because his parents are so so fought in their ways. He's not allowed to have a lot of things. Now, granted, part of that is for health reasons. He can't swallow real well because of his condition, so he's not allowed to have candy or things that are hard to chew. But he smuggles things, puts them in a tin can, and buries them at the clubhouse so his parents won't find them. So whenever they meet, they bust open the tin can and all the goodies that are inside, right? So they're like, it's like their fellowship, if you will, right? There's 4 or 5 of them that are all just, the 3 best friends that anyone's ever had. And they all grow up, and their relationships change. One of the girls who appears to be the closest with them, she's a photographer, and she's there at the scene taking pictures, trying to figure out what's going on. He's got a friend who's into electromagnets. He's got his partner in the robotics world, right? So there's like all these things, and it's a murder mystery, because not only did someone kill him, but someone stole his suit. So now the beat is on to figure out who the killer is. Could it be, right at the end of the issue with, could it be one of the members of the Tin Can Society, right? So I love that, right? Because we got a detective story. You've got one of these things like, Murder on the Orient Express, where you get all these people and they're all potential culprits, if you will. Right. And there's signs pointing to any one of them having a reason to do this. So I absolutely love this book. This was so in my wheelhouse, it wasn't even funny. And this has great, great potential to be a great series. And I got a feeling as soon as it's done, I'm going to want to talk about it on the program.
That's awesome. The only thing that sucks about it is that it's coming out in October. So it's not going to be up for the 2024 floppies. You're going to till 2025. So
Yeah.
better start keeping your notes now because it sounds like that is in the early running.
Well, I'm going to tell you, there's a book that came out in October 2023 that made a floppy.
Yeah. It's confirmed already.
Yeah, one's confirmed.
One of us, ladies and gentlemen, has their floppies already picked out. There may be certain things I'm sure that are still up in the air, but the other one of us does not. We'll just leave it at that.
I've been doing extensive research.
Yes. Well, okay. I guess someone may have tipped their hand. Anyways, all right. That's it for I say that's it. We got everything that's out this week. We broke down the things we wanted to break down. Now it's time to continue spooky season with our mainline books. Joe, we ended things off with Image and What's New, which means you are going to be talking about an Image book this week. What do you got for me?
4 hours later, after all, that was a lot to talk about this week. It was just
the fastest
books
50 minutes of my day.
There's just too many good books to talk about, Nicholas. It was hard paring it down. I am talking Crave from Image Comics, written, drawn, colored, and lettered by one Maria Lovett.
Or leave it.
There you go, baby. You may recognize the name because she was the artist on Faithless, which was written by Brian Azzarello. These comics are famous for their explicit nature and also being sold in plastic bags with the covers blanked out because they were that naughty. And she was also the writer and artist on a book called Porcelain, which I want to go out and check out. That came out in 2018, 2019, around there somewhere. Crave, as I'm going to be talking about in a moment, and Violet Flowers, which I'm reading now. So, synopsis for Crave: a mysterious app that promises to make your desires come true spreads among the students of an elite university who use it as a hookup app. David, a top student, engages in a game of seduction with an unattainable Alexandra. But as requests to the app escalate and wreak havoc on the campus, David and his friends' only chance to stop this spiral is to find out what really lies behind Crave. So if you're unfamiliar with Maria Lovett, her writing style, her art style, it is very explicit. Right, I don't know her nationality. I just want to assume her art gives that sort of European indie comic book flair to it. When you go overseas, if you ever seen comics from, they look a little different. They feel a little different. They're drawn a little different, right? And this has that vibe to it. I've used this word a few times today, but it's got a gothic, just kind of way about it, a feel to it, and I love that, and it fits. I think it fits her storytelling so well because it's one voice what you're getting here. So this is the complete creator's vision here, and it starts off with this sort of mysterious app appearing on everyone's cell phone, sort of like that dumb U2 album that appeared on everyone's iTunes overnight, it seems like a decade ago. Like, I don't want this fucking nonsense on you, and you couldn't fucking delete it. It's like, what are you doing? God,
I didn't even know about it originally, but when I found it and it was like, wait, what the fuck? That is not okay.
Get out of here with this. So this app, and then it's sort of catchphrase is, tell us what you crave, we'll make it happen. So we talked about social commentary, right? So this book is a bit of a social commentary on dating apps, obsession with social media, the role that social media plays in our lives and how we judge things and how it sort of dictates what we do on a daily basis. And so essentially what you do is you type into the app what you crave, and it will respond with step-by-step instructions on how to make that craving happen.
I already fucking hate this. I love the concept, but I already fucking hate this. This is
it will tell you that there is 0 probability or less than 10% probability that this will happen, right? So it has the ability to not only maybe grant you what you most desire, but also say what you most desire is impossible and will never happen. So there's chaos that can come in from two, different angles, right? And so you can see just where jealousy and tension and mayhem can occur, right? Because I don't know about you when you were in college, Nicholas, but if these apps didn't exist when I was in college, right? Cell phones by and large were just bricks. You
Right.
played Snake on them. You
Yeah.
charged you a shit ton for texts. It was a big thing when you got unlimited text in college. And then data started to become a thing, but data really wasn't a thing until I was already in chiropractic school, right? And Blackberries were kicking it up a notch. And then when the first iPhone came out, which would have been 2007, 2008. So I graduated college in 2004. So this shit didn't exist. But can you imagine like the depraved shit that goes through your mind when you're that age, right?
Yeah.
So
No
having
way.
an app, that can like just bring you your deepest desires. I mean, think about like, oh yeah, we can make three ways happen, right? And on one hand, that's going to be a really awesome thing, except for when his girlfriend's not in the three way and she finds out about it, that's going to be a problem, right?
It's just fucking brilliant. This really
Right.
is like this story is like that's why I already have such a visceral reation to it because it's just this is so well done. I'm gonna read this shit ASAP.
So the first issue, it really is like, this like, oh, it starts off with like, hey, we heard about this app. Oh, yeah, yeah. And then you just see panels of like, two women kissing. You've got students hooking up with professors, right? So it's like you'd imagine that, like, yes, the first place this goes to is orgies and sexual escapades, right? And it's just like nuts. And Maria Lovett doesn't hold back. She draws it and she gets in there, and and some of it is depraved sexual shit. And it revolves around you meet David, who's one of your main characters, and some of his buddies, and you meet this girl that he's been dating, but he's trying to end it, you know, and she's nuts. She's a fucking Looney Tune. And she's like, oh yeah, I made plans for our trip and we do this, you're going to meet my parents. He's like, whoa, 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 we didn't talk about that. He goes, I told you I didn't want to go. In fact, I've been trying to tell you, but I think we should break up. And she's like, no, I don't want to hear it. And she runs off. So now you've got an unhinged, girl who is just broken up with, that is obsessed with this one guy, but he's not into her. He's always sort of been into this other girl who happens to anonymously send him a message over Crave. And it's like, essentially like, do you crave this? And it's her in like, sort of like this, BDSM suit that's barely covering anything. And it says anonymous user, but he knows who it is because he's looking at her on her phone. He's looking at her sitting across on the opposite bench from him, right? So now you've got this weird love triangle, and then that's the girl that's mentioned in the synopsis, Alexandria, and this love triangle that starts to happen, and so students are now like just tearing the place apart, with just mayhem and just there's bodily fluids all over the place, man. It gets wild. And what really puts the nice little spin, because you think, oh, this is just going to be like just sort of this weirdo sex book, but no. There's a scene towards the end, a few pages at the end of towards the end of the first issue, where a professor comes into a classroom and says, have you seen so and so, so and so, and so and so? And have you seen, and one of them being, have you seen Kei Saito? Goes, no, we haven't seen him. We think he might have left for his holiday already. He's like, well, if you find him, I really need to see him. And they get back to the dorm room. There's Kay. He's packing up in a hurry. He looks like he wants to get the hell out of there. And they're like, oh yeah, so and so is looking for you. He goes, don't tell anybody where I am. Don't tell anybody where I'm going. So it's like real suspicious behavior. And then when he leaves, David finds a note that says, it says, don't open Crave. Don't use Crave under any circumstances.
Oh boy.
Kei Saito happens to be one of the creators of the app. So something is afoot, something more devious is at play here, and that's sort of what this book is about. There's you get this chaos, right? You get revenge starting to kick in. You have vendettas, violence, tension, all the explicit sexual stuff that's going on, and it really devolves really quickly. But you've got David, you've got Alexandra, and you got another one of his friends, a couple other friends, really trying to get to the root of what's going on here, right? What's really controlling Crave? Is there something more sinister behind it? What's the end goal here? And that's sort of what you find out, but you don't really get into that too until you're 2/3 of the way through the story, which I like because there's this great build, this great pacing, to storytelling, and it is a sinister book, right? So picking spooky books, for this season, I went off the beaten path a little bit. I'm kind of picking, some not just straight up horror books, with one hand and the six fingers. That was more of a meta cat and mouse serial killer kind of, detective story. This is like AI run amok, taking sort of that look at social commentary of how we live our lives with these dating apps, and more of just like more than just the mental toll that it can take, but the real life repercussions, and that's magnified by 1,000. And again, we talked about it. You're not being lectured to, you're not being hit over the head with. It's there, what's going on, but it's done really well. So the suspense, the tension, the stakes get really high in this book. So Maria Lovett really builds just a wonderful story here, and her art tells a really wonderful story here. I think like Zdarsky, like I was talking with Waters and Lemire, Lovett has a really great handle on the human psyche and really does take her readers on an emotional roller coaster, while also building that suspense and that terrifying bits into her storytelling. So she pulled this off brilliantly, Nicholas. I think this is a book you're going to love. I know you hate AI with a passion, and I think in that aspect, this book is going to terrify you.
Yeah, 100%. Like this, that's why I couldn't help myself from interjecting. How often do I interrupt you when you're doing, doing a mainline episode? Like this like the concept sounds both brilliant and both awful. And like, I can't wait to read it. This sounds like something totally up my alley in this. And unfortunately, I do think sometimes I would run into, if we didn't do this, if we had never started TLDR, I'd run into more like these tech kind of things. I don't want to read it because it already kind of annoys me and whatever. But now it's like, no, this shit's fascinating when it's done really well, because it's very much of the moment. And these people kind of, sometimes the writers feel similar to how I feel.
And when you get the reveal, man, it's really going to go up your craw.
Oh boy,
but in a good way. Like for all the reasons that like you hate the reveal is something else.
Yeah, I know we're for our listeners. I know we're like going back and forth. Like the AI stuff is going to bother me, but anything done well in a story that's earned and all that stuff, like I'm going to appreciate it from a storytelling standpoint. So
yeah,
I can't wait to check out Crave. Well done.
It's a book I'd have Lauren read too. Now tell her it is a little naughty, but I do think it would be a book that she would like.
I just got
surprisingly enough.
I just got her to read the Magic Order by Mark Millar. She read the first volume.
You know what? Get her to read Sex Criminals. Seriously.
It's I will we'll talk about that more off air. No, it's not. I know it may sound like it's not because of the Sex Criminals thing. Well, like she's but she's of the stuff that she's read that we've recommended on the show, she's enjoyed all of it, and read Vanish, which we didn't do an episode on because we had Stegman on the show. But anyways, moving over to the book that I have planned for this week. I know you mentioned how you've kind of gone off the beaten path in the way of horror, and I went, and as you said, that kind of just circled back on, I talked about Somna last week and then Denizen the week prior. I've had, Denizen is more of a traditional horror in a sense, as much as it's very much about family. I mean, horror can be about anything, quite honestly. And then Somna, it has horror vibes to it, but it's not like there's an eeriness to it, but it's one of those things where I look at it and it's like, yeah, it's kind of horror-y, but it's not like like gonna give you nightmares. Maybe the character from the dreams could, and if you look at the wrong corner in your bedroom after you read this, like right at night. But then we go here to Monsters. Excuse me, Monsters Are My Business by Cullen Bunn and Patrick Piazzalunga over at Dark Horse, and this is horror action comedy. This is so much fucking fun, and it's in this like horror world. Patrick is the artist on this. This was my first introduction to him. We're going to be seeing more of him too, because he's doing another Dark Horse title, and this is going to be with Kyle Starks, and I think it's something to do with serial killers, and it's like definitely got like a comedic vibe to it as well. So I'm very excited for that. Colors on this, Marco Bracco, and then letters are by Jim Campbell. This is a 4-issue series. The trade is going to be coming out in November, so not during spooky season, but right afterwards, and definitely like a good transition out of the spooky season. It just as much as it could be a good transition in, because while most of this shit's not going to give you nightmares, there's a couple like particularly scary things I would say, but not like Patrick's art style makes this very accessible for, yes, a horror fan, but also someone who's like, I kind of like horror, but like I also want to sleep at night. This is kind of in that nice middle ground for you guys. Yeah. Yes. As much as you take that all the time, like that title of being the scaredy cat on the show, I think I enjoy torturing myself a little bit sometimes. I had a fucking nightmare the other day where it was like, I had a dream where it was like an old lady in a fucking Hannibal Lecter type mask, and she was like, there were definitely powers like at play too, and I just can't get her out of my fucking head, and it's not great.
What about the one with Cronenworth taking your yard?
Oh yeah, that one. That was actually real life, Joe. So I don't need that reminder.
Living nightmare.
Yeah. You know who else? Actually, so Cronenworth actually never took me deep, but you know who actually did take me deep that played in the bigs is Mike Yastrzemski.
Oh,
yeah,
little Mikey Y.
Yes, in high school, it was like a showcase tournament thing. I think the next time he reached on an error, but the first time he took me deep for sure. But yeah, I think that's the only guy. That's the only guy who made it to the bigs that took me deep. Anyways, moving on. Synopsis for Monsters Are My Business. Again, this is a Cullen Bunn title over at Dark Horse. Meet Tanner Grisholm, along with a shrewd necromancer who wants him dead, and a chainsaw-wielding koala bear named Cuddles, also known as Doc, as he wages a bloody war against nightmares from beyond time and space. It's thankless work, but someone has to do it. I don't like, you don't have the description of Grizz in there, like in terms of what he looks like, but you have like a very specific description of this necromancer character. You have a koala bear who's getting in on the action. And then it's like this all the spooky like bounty hunter type world. I was in right away, and then you on top of that, like if you see Patrick's art, or if you see obviously Cullen, it's his story that he co-created. Everything about this, I was like, I'm in right away, and I took this one from you because I knew you would call dibs on it too, because it seemed like too much fun. And with Grizz, like this guy's a big like oversized massive bounty hunter who's got like a biker like style to him. He's got the big ass beard, the flow, a bandana, cut off jean jacket or jean vest, and what, like everything. He's like this big ass biker bounty hunter who's hunting monsters all throughout town. And I mean, just like I love him. And this whole story in general, I'm like getting ahead on this one, but this whole story feels like it should be like a Saturday morning cartoon. Like maybe not like you don't want to make it too kiddie in that way, but it has that kind of vibe. Like I'd love to see that art style and then just go friggin' nuts, have a monster of the week and everything like that. Cuddles, I mentioned, chainsaw wielding koala bear, friggin' awesome. We did talk to Colin about him a little bit when we had him on to talk about Beyond Mortal. Then that shrewd necromancer who wants Grizz dead, her name is Hillary. And that whole bit about wanting Grizz dead, that is not a secret to Grizz, and yet they are teammates in this whole journey. There are other characters who do pop up throughout the course of the 4 issues. Not going to dig into them because I don't want to spoil things. I feel like talking about any of them would kind of get too far into a plot where I wouldn't want to. I will say this, like when we talked to Colin, I got the impression that if sales are good enough, then maybe we'll see another arc, or maybe he already knew at that point and couldn't necessarily tell us. But this very much has the making of like an ongoing title, as much as anything. So I really hope that we see more of it over at Dark Horse. But right now it's just the 4 issues, and if that's all they ever do, the story was told in a way where, like, yeah, I want more, but we're going to be fine. In terms of Cullen's work, and the writing on this, like, what you're going to get from a quality standpoint with him every single time. The Monsters Are My Business absolutely delivers on that front. With him, I think we saw it with Beyond Mortal. People are going to see it with Hexiles when they check that out. And then you see it here with Monsters Are My Business. The amount of world building that he's displayed, especially lately, has been very prominent. And I think that he does it really well with all 3. It's not, I don't need to compare all 3, but like this really stands out because this world feels so lived in. Like everything feels established well in Beyond Mortal and Hexiles. But I feel like in Monsters Are My Business, maybe it's because of the way Grizz is, and this feels like so like street level in such a way, as much as you deal with like heightened shit. It feels like the world building. There's an element to the world building that's like slightly different than the other 2 books that I brought up. Grizz is an awesome lead character. Like I'd love to have like a 90s style like action figure, like small action figure on my desk of him. Like he just seems like he's an easy one to lean into, like from a look standpoint, and then from a personality standpoint too, because this is a guy who's like, he clearly wants to do what's right all the time. And he's not like a piece of shit like a Constantine or something like that. Like, but he's definitely made some like questionable decisions over time. Just because I think of like, not always, like, he's not a dummy, but like, just, we make dumb decisions sometimes. Like you sleep with somebody who was like, probably shouldn't have done that. Or sometimes it's, even so far as a relationship, probably should have done that. And that may be something that gets dug into a little bit throughout the story. But then he's at the center of it all. There's a larger plot going on, but then like there's so much more that can be dug into with the secondary characters as well. Like Hillary is involved with this arc, but there's so much we don't know about her. I mean, just imagine that, like, shrewd necromancer who wants Grizz dead. That's all we're going to tell you. She's going to play a part in all this. She's going to have a little bit of an attitude, a very interesting character. And it's like, but we're not going to get into what the hell's going on here. Like, that's a villain waiting to happen. So that, like, of nothing else, I need another arc just to see that storyline in some capacity. Then you have Cuddles, who's just like, I understand not digging too far into that character because he's just, he's a cute, cuddly koala bear who, can freaking get after it with a chainsaw. But like, I don't need more than that. I would love to learn some more about his origin and how he came to be. But like, he is awesome as is. And then there's like this, again, I'm not getting into names on this, but like there's this government agent type character who's in the mix. He's only so interesting like individually, but from a plot standpoint, I think we could get into a lot more there as well. I feel like there's at least 2 more like plots that like the seeds were sown for in these 4 issues of Monsters Are My Business, and there's probably more that I'm not thinking of at the moment. It's a really, really rich experience from a world building standpoint, and then this thing moves like a fucking roller coaster ride. This thing is Thunder Mountain with some, with some Factory of Terror mixed in this shit. And like I said, like this absolutely, in an ideal world, this is like a cartoon, like on Amazon Prime, like, a la like maybe the Vox Machina art style wouldn't work quite the same for this, but I would love, honestly, if they made the art style feel even more kiddish and then turned it into like this crazy fucking violent thing and even turned it up a notch from the book, I'd be all about it. And then from an art standpoint, you guys have heard me rave quite a bit about Patrick Piazzalunga after discovering him personally on this title. I'd not seen his work before. Very excited to see what he's going to do with Kyle Starks as well, but I also want more of him here. And I feel like the past year or so, I've talked more so about finding cartoony art styles. Obviously, we get plenty of that with Farrell and Trish Forstner. Obviously, that's a very specific thing with her, where it's got like a Disney-ish kind of feel to it, and maybe like an All Dogs Go to Heaven kind of feel to her style. But then obviously you have Jorge Corona and oh my god, Scotty Young, who's like the one who kind of like really launched everything in a lot of ways for this art style in the space where you can do a lot of different shit. So I feel like I'm on the lookout more and more for anybody who has that kind of art style, because it provides like nostalgia in a way, but also you're getting different stories still. And that's kind of like where for me I look for nostalgia. Like it feels similar, but it's its own fucking thing. But while this has that cartoony art style and scratches that itch for me, then you bring in Marco Bracco's colors in this, and it provides a very different texture than Jorge Corona, and what he's done with Scotty Young, and then Scotty Young's own stuff, and then even Trish as well. Like it helps ground this story in I think that's huge, because things can get fucking wild in here. And I could totally see with Patrick's art style that things could get zany, but while the story's in like it gets out of control at times in a good way, like it never steps into zany, which I don't think would have necessarily fit this story all too well. So Monsters Are My Business. The trade of that is going to be coming out early in, I'd say more mid-November. Looks like it's the 12th, as far as we can tell right now. Definitely something that horror fans are going to want to pick up.
Yeah, let's go. That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
That
you're gonna have
sounds
fun with this.
awesome.
You're gonna breeze
Yeah.
right through this. Between the two of us, I think we're gonna breeze right through both of these.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got one more week of horror stuff, and you said you're gonna do Dracula, right?
James
Okay.
Tynion. Yep.
Okay, cool. I gotta send you, but I got the trade of Sanction from Mad Cave. I know that was another one that was on your radar to do soon as well. Right? Is that a
Oh,
horror book?
nice. Sanction is,
Is
yeah,
that a-
it's along the same vein of One Hand, Six Fingers. So it's a serial
Ah,
killer detective, so Sanction. This is the one where you read the first issue, said, not for me.
yeah. Well,
And I took it.
that was
And
me. Yeah, yep. The
yeah,
old dumb Nick showed up and said, "Oh, it doesn't look like Dan Panosian's art style quite as much," so it fucking threw me off. I
yeah.
don't know.
Excellent,
It's,
excellent, excellent,
it's
excellent, excellent. So it's got that serial killer horror vibe to it, like dead bodies, what's going on, there's a conspiracy going on, who's at play, who are the players, cat and mouse thing going on. So yeah,
nice.
corruption, the whole nine yards.
Nice. Well, you'll be here. I'm sure I'll be hearing about that one soon. But we got one more week of spooky season to go. Again, make sure you subscribe to our audio channels, because you never know when the next Fireside Chat's going to be coming. Because honestly, Joe and I never know when they're going to be coming. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review, or whatever the highest rating you can leave when you're there. Joe, until next week, stay sexy.
Yeah, and keep reading. Jesus, Nicholas, come on, that's our catchphrase.